The problem, as we've been seeing, is how homes are burning and how communities are affected by fire. And if we make that our focus, we can focus on areas on improving that. So what we have seen is a large amount of home ignitions in the Knysna and Plettenberg Bay areas. And these home ignitions could be prevented in a lot of circumstances. So we need to analyze things at where homes are placed in terms of planning, from a planning perspective, town planning, where homes are positioned on the slope and relative to the interface, where homes interface with the wildfire environment. And then we also need to look at materials that our homes are built with. So if we're building new homes in high-risk areas, the materials that we build with need to be fire-resistant and fireproof. And we need to look at retrofitting homes, so existing homes in the environment, what can be done to them to improve the survivability rate of the structure.
The wind was the major problem of the fires, and the houses burned down, especially in the Belvidere area, because the sparks were hitting the roof. They were running up the roof. Your canopy's there, your corrugations are here, and I know this because I had our trapdoor open, putting a couple of boxes in. The wife wanted them out of the way. So I thought, oh, it's blowing a bit the wind, I'll close the trapdoor. So I went up and I, excuse the expression, I shit myself. Because it was like bonfire night in my roof. That's right. Yeah. It was red. I looked, I thought, what's that flash? And there was sparks flying into the roof. I thought, well, that's it. Come on, Joyce, out we go, because that's it.
I wasn't really concerned about evacuating my stuff at the house. Everybody else was getting ready to go. My mindset is one to stay and fight. I believe I'm my own first responder. I believe in the value of the professional services and emergency services, but I do believe that the time that it takes, there's no guarantee that they're going to get to you on time, and you can do critical things in that time gap to fill the gap. So my mindset was very much, what can I do proactively to prevent the fire? Not to stop the inferno, because I just had a hose pipe, well, several hose pipes that I was fortunate enough to connect together to form a very long line. But my plan was to wet all the vegetation. So first thing I did was to notice which way the fire was coming. And once I realized that that fire from the east was not a threat as much as the fire from the south or from the northwest, because that was the way the wind was blowing predominantly, I then focused wetting on all this vegetation around me. I took the hose and I stood there for about an hour. Even once the family, everybody had evacuated, my mindset was one of make it as difficult for the sparks, because essentially that was how the fire was propagating, from what I could tell, having observed it, was that the wind would send the sparks, and the coals would travel quite a distance, and then it would land usually in something that resembled a palm frond or dry vegetation, because it always seems to attract sparks. That those would go up, and then the fire would take it to the house, and then the house would go up, and then so the fire would spread. The fire in the urban area wasn't spreading as fast as wildfire in the bush. So that's what I did. I basically wet as much as I could in this entire area here, and then watched and waited. When the chalets went up, which is kind of directly west from us, I think they're wooden chalets, the ones that were closest by, they were all cladded with thatched roofs. That sent up, it looked like a scene out of Lord of the Rings. It looked like, you had these fiery darts coming at you. I did monitor the house as well, the guttering, and I did pick up a burn on the fascia board on the north side of this house. The fire had gotten into the guttering, and it was starting to burn the fascia, and then fortunately I picked that up, and it would have gotten to the roof and then gutted the entire house. The other thing was the empty plots. Empty plots were not clear, so there's a lot of ready kindling there, especially the dead undergrowth. And in fact, between this property and the property in the front, which I managed to get their hose pipe into play as well. And another thing I did was rain tanks. I took a few rain tanks and let them run all the water out to flood the area where there was grass, so that any sparks would basically get put out by themselves. So because I was stretched so thin, there was no ways I could be in all places at once. But yeah, it worked out.
It was more smoke than the fire, because the fire was more crawling down. That was making it dangerous. And while it's crawling, all of a sudden you see the fire, it's up. Whilst you see the corrugated structure roof will just burn and move to another. So it was just a lot of movement on top, but the fire was just busy crawling. Yeah.
I helped to put out fires at the place, And then while we were doing so, we could actually see some of these coals flying through the air onto a roof of a house, and it started burning. And within 5 minutes, the house was completely in flames. And then it set alight the house next to that one. And then the coals jumped over the hill, over the tar road, and then it set another house alight.
Hey, the spot fires was very hectic, and the spot fire was too much. That is the most thing that damaged many things or many properties in Knysna, because the spot fires were the one that spread more fires.
At that time, none of these houses here had ignited. And because there was like this wall of fire coming down, we left. And we came back, I would think about 3 hours later. I can actually check that, but I think it must have been about 3 hours later we came back. These houses had gone. Those houses, that side had gone. That house had a lot of smoldering stuff around it, but the house was okay. The house down there was okay. But the back of my house was burning, and while I was putting it out with buckets, I would think about an hour or so later, that house went up. And that house went up because there was a small fire in the one corner on the fence that, because I was busy with this house, I couldn't get out.